Merlin, when did you do our program?
Year and a half ago.
Year and a half ago. Yes, roughly that.
Yep.
I think it was January 2009.
Sounds exactly right.
Sounds like about 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, I'm happy
Time
with
flies
that.
when you have fun. It just keeps sneaking on by. And Merlin, you were a bit of a sceptic.
Not a bit. The major
Skeptic.
skeptic.
In our abundance program, we always say hands up those who are sceptical, and you get most people, like there's about 70%. And who's a real skeptic? Merlin. Wow. And we do a little thing with the skeptics, but he was the major one. And he sent his brother along the month after, or a couple of months later, and we asked who's a skeptic. He put his hand, who's the next skeptic? It's exactly the same, runs in the family. And then they sent their sons along, and each one of those won the prize of the skeptic. So it's virtually two sons.
Runs in the family.
It does.
The apple never falls far from the tree.
Exactly. So, and his father, we had the hate site, so his father found the hate site, said, get off the bus. Get off the bus. These people are a cult, they're criminals. And he arrives at the function and says, this is terrible, I shouldn't be here. And
At the Hunter Valley,
Hunter
I
Valley,
spoke
yes,
with Zolty.
exactly. Yeah.
I said, if I can't speak to the master, who's next in charge? So they gave me Zolty. And,
he doesn't speak a word of English, that was
so I
good.
think that's why they gave it to me, because he's Polish and can't speak any English. So that was Roy's complaint department.
Anyway, we said in the abundance program, it has a 14-day money-back guarantee. So it says, if you're not happy, just send us a thing and we send you back the money. So worst case is you get your money back. Anyway, there's nowhere to go. The bus is gone.
Yeah. I had no transport, so I had to stay.
There you go. Anyway, 90 days later, what happened?
Well, just before we go down that road, there's a lady from the tax office. We've all signed that confidentiality in here
Yes,
that it
absolutely.
stays. Has that been all signed and documented?
And Merlin is masterful with his tax. He declares all income
Every
and
cent.
claims all deductions possible, which there's many of. Exactly, it's a major one. So, 90 days. What happened? The biggest skeptic in the room.
In the first 90 days, I was fortunate enough to make $1 million.
I think it's actually deserving of a clap myself. Woohoo! Now, how did you do that? I'll just get this one together. How do we want to get this on? How do we get this done? In fact, we made him the success of the year, just for the biggest skeptic. You want to put the lights down, Mr. Seamus? And how do we do this? Because?
As the art collector, there's the big piece of art I bought as one of my rewards. So.
Exactly. And when we played the movie of Wall Street, I maintained that he was playing the part. Doesn't he look like it? And Michael Douglas tries to take him off, but just can't quite get it. You know what I mean? Nearly, but definitely.
Close.
Yep. So, what was the why?
Well, my why was, my family, my children, in giving them a better life and being able to go forward with the knowledge that I got through abundance, was the why that I wanted to do that. Mitchell, my son that you can see there, he came on the program with me. Mitchell wanted to be a professional rugby player. He came along, had a chat with Roy, they had some dialogue together, and Mitchell finished up playing for the Queensland University team, and he's now in the Reds Academy, and he was voted best on the ground in the grand final last year, so he's achieving the goal that he set out, and that was the why that I wanted to give him. And I think, I'd just like to share with everybody in this room, your why will give you a desire, and your desire will give you a goal. And if you've got those three pieces there and you put them together, you are definitely going to be a success in whatever you do. And it's not...
Let's get that down. Let's get the lights up so we can get this recording on properly too, Seamus. Thank you. Right, all of them up. That's great. So let's say that again so they can get it down.
I can't remember.
The why.
Your why will give you desire.
Yes.
And your desire will then give you a goal. And if you have a structured goal, you're going to be a success in whatever you take on and whatever you want to do. And it's not a desire or a wish to say, I wish to be wealthy, I wish to be successful. you really do have to have that desire and that goal pulsating within you, so there's no fear of anything other than achieving that goal and achieving that desire. And I think, I don't know if Roy said it on this seminar that you're attending, but he told us a story of a fleet of ships that went across to one of the countries to fight a war. They were totally outnumbered. They were totally outpositioned because they were sailing in and they'd already taken their positions on the beachhead. So it was a very, very difficult task to have a victory with all those obstacles in front of you. And what the general of these attacking army, when they beached their ships, they burnt the boats, so there was no retreat. And that's how that expression, you have a burning desire. And I don't think there's anything more of a burning desire to win than not having a retreat plan in place. And that's what you've got to do when you have a goal and a plan and a desire. And that's what you'll learn here doing the abundance and doing it with Roy.
Well, if we could add one word to that too, and that's action. Action's everything. In other words, all wealth is precise action. You have the desires and all the wonderful things unless you take action. And we're going to talk a bit about what Merlin does as far as action is concerned.
And I think one of the... oh, sorry.
No, we'll
Yep. You take over, Roy.
Okay. Well, we're just over here on this, just after the why, we got to the next slide, which sort of covers a few things here. You survived?
I was very lucky I survived the abundance plan. I didn't think I would. Anybody in the room who's done abundance, you start at 6 and you finish at 11 p.m, 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. So you guys have got it pretty easy, and only working until 7 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, hey, you know.
Well, 6 11, that only sounds like to me, like 5 hours or something.
Yeah, it's
really.
a half day when you normally go on your abundance course.
And did it with your family and son and your wife and investment direction. Wanted a mentor to join
I think this, having a mentor is immensely important because it cuts out a lot of your mistakes. I was in the mentoring program with Roy, and I could phone him up with an idea. I didn't have to make the mistakes, which mistakes can become very expensive, very costly.
Yeah.
Not only do you lose dollars, you lose time in your planning on where you want to get to. So having a mentor, having someone you can bounce an idea off, everyone's got great ideas, everyone's got great plans, but things do get in the road, and to have and to be on the mentoring program, so you might think it's expensive at the time, but in what I learned is that I got the mistakes cut out because I could phone Roy, have a chat with Roy at any stage. We looked at doing a project together, and the only time that Roy could see me was, I think, about 10 o'clock at night, and he graciously came down to the site that we were looking at 10:30 at night. Those sort of things are what you get when you do have the mentoring program, and it's immensely helpful to have that.
I remember that night very clearly, and it was a transaction that was a fairly large. Merlin had only just done this other one and made $1 million, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, but this was his second transaction. It was a $5.8 million transaction, if I remember correctly, which is like, hello, we teach people to do the first one, and we'll be talking about this tomorrow. We're talking about, $500,000 or $600,000 little house, little makeover, and he's looking at this 5.8 million. He says, Roy, you come and give me a hand at this one?
You said start small. I got my gold program. I'm ready to...
So there's Josh, who's the real estate agent, and he's there at 10:30 as well, and he brought his daughter along, and he's got his beautiful Mercedes Sports. He's only a week old. And we're looking at this transaction. We had a look at the property and stuff. And just to show where he'd come from the skeptic, where Merlin had become this very generous man, he held the keys up to this car. It was like $250,000 car, and said, Josh, you do this deal and this car is yours. And
If you get this price that we want, not the price that they were requesting, you can have the car.
He threw the keys to him. John catches the keys. Is that a bit of an incentive? a $250,000 car, 1 week old. Down here, found the value of being an extraordinary...
Well, I suffered, and I'm sure a lot of people do in the room. We did the whole program, and it was the square that you go around to find out
Which
your
is the wealth profile.
wealth profile. And surprisingly, it turned out that I was a lone wolf or a lone walker or whatever the
Lone wolf.
the term was.
Anyone with blue suede shoes by themselves is going to walk alone. Let's get clear.
And so I did the program, but I couldn't really get myself into the flow of understanding to have a team around me of people that knew less than I did. And so I was...
Can you see? There's a natural understanding that everyone would only know less than him, because that's just the way it is.
So I wanted to surround myself with successful people, and I said, we're all in the same boat. So how am I going to learn from them to do things? So I was really struggling with that concept of a dream team. And so again, going back to the master, I said, Master, and he said, yes, Grasshopper.
I actually did. I said, because Groucho Marx taught me this lesson. He said, never join a club that would have me as a member.
So I said to Master, I can't get my head around this dream team. He said, I can understand that, and what I suggest that you do is to get a team of advisors around you. And by that, so my dream team switched to being a team of advisors. And so what I got around me then was a real estate agent, my bank manager, my solicitor, quantity surveyor, and they become my team of advisors. So you don't have to share your profits if you can outsource. And if you've got the ability and the know-how to do it, which you can always lean on Roy and the mentoring program, you don't have to give away all your profits to a dream team. You can have a team of advisors, you can pay them on performance for their advice, and that's what I put together, the same concept of a dream team, but I had as a team of advisors, and I think, you know, I don't know whether someone else struggles with the dream team concept, but that's another way that you can put that together for yourself.
Right. So from skeptic to commercial real estate extraordinaire.
And I didn't put these slides together. So that's not the word I used. I am a total retard when it comes to computers. Tyson put this together for me. I wouldn't have used that word. But
there it is.
There it is.
And here we are, the step by step. So negotiate the price, arrange your due diligence, solicit to arrange the contracts, speak with bank about the finance, go to council and build the building requirements, building costs, tender the lease process, engage the builder for building and subdivision, negotiate and find the contract price, and satisfy with the due diligence to go to contract. Now this is a story, a step by step. We're going to give you this as a little handout anyway on another form tomorrow, but it's how we actually go through the steps of dealing with a transaction. And this transaction was not very far from here. It was in Brisbane.
Down Main Beach.
Main Beach, and
Yep.
it was an empty...
No, it was a going concern. It was a small hamburger shop
that's right, yeah,
down on the corner of Woodruff Avenue and the Esplanade in Main Beach.
And what you did was subdivide it?
Bought the business which they were wanting to get out of. It was a smallish type of convenience store, but they sold hamburgers, newspapers and supplies because there was a caravan park not far from there. So it was a small going concern. And the word that really I think is important up there is the due diligence. As you get taught in abundance, control is much better than ownership, and that's how I learnt through the abundance program, was to do a due diligence. And if you say to somebody you want an option, they retreat back into themselves. They go, don't understand it, too difficult. But if you tell them that you want to do a due diligence on any property, they think, oh, well, he's going to look at my books for my hamburgers and my sales and so forth. So it gave me a period of time that I could sign the contract as a due diligence process, and then I went through all of those other steps that you see up there on the board, and that gave me around about 90 days.
And in the 90 days, what he could do is get a subdivision on that, put a wall up if you wish to, but more importantly, get the two tenants to take it over, which happened to be a 7-Eleven
and Subway.
He got those all signed up and committed before he committed.
Yeah.
So his takeout was done. Let's have a look at the numbers and what this thing looks like. That's just the Gold Coast to say where it is, the 7-Eleven and the Subway. The original price that was asked was $1,650,000, 1.65, and the building cost was about 180 for the wall and all the rest, and legals and stamp duty 75, leases 25. So the total cost 1.93 million. 7-Eleven rental income 165,000. The Subway about 60 grand. A total of $225,000. Or 35%, was it 3.5%
annual increase on the rent.
That's an increase on the rent. So if we do a quick calculation on a 10% yield, 2.25, can you see that is actually, 225,000 gives you a 2.25 million value? Now that's at 10%, and at 7% is a different number. Let's have a look. Yearly rent, and this is
something that everybody should write down. This is the silver bullet of how you value businesses on a commercial sense.
The yearly rent the yield is equal to the rent divided by the purchase price times 100.
So you take your total rent, divide it by your purchase price, multiply that by 100, and that will give you a percentage return on your investment. And you can work on any business anywhere in the world, anywhere in any state of Australia, and you can do it sitting down at the newspaper of a Saturday morning and work out what you want to have a look at.
And this yield is very, very important number, and it's more important than position. It's more important than any other thing. In other words, it's what the return you're getting on your investment. Now, Merlin, you never had done this before. You'd never done commercial
You said
transactions.
to start small.
That's the way.
So I took your advice.
Well, so check out how small it is. So at a yield, well, the yield for that is 11.7% return on that purchase price or that cost.
And going through that, your total rent is 225, divide by my completed purchase price of 1,930,000, multiply that by 100, and that gave me an 11.7% yield on that investment.
So if he did nothing else, just did that, can you see, is that a pretty good thing? Plus he's got growth, so that's his income yield, he's got growth as well. And he's got a escalation clause inbuilt in the rent. So the rent's going to go up by 3.5% annually.
For 15 years.
For 15 years. Can that make a difference? Okay, let's have a look. So we take that figure and whack in a few things like St. George, the banks and the loan ratio gives this, loan value ratio, gives the bank, they work at like a 60% total bank valuation, 7.5% interest. So the bank valued the property at 7% yield. So when that happens, the bank valuation works at 3.214 million. Very good number, yes?
So that's what the business went from my cost of 1.9 for a rough figure to the bank valuing it at 3.2, and then I still hadn't bought the property at this stage. And so then I said, what's your lending criteria on a 3.2? They said, we will lend, because it's commercial, we lend 60% of the value of the business, as opposed to your residential real estate that'll give you 90%, they lend it at 60%. So when you take the 3.2 valuation, they will lend me 1.9, which was my purchase price. So it cost me 1.9 to do it. The bank would loan me 1.9. I think it turned out I did have to put some money into it, which I was disappointed. I think there was 2,000 that had to go into it.
It's a shame. Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah, never mind. These things, these are the struggles. These are the kind of big rocks you've got to climb over. Okay.
So then my rent was 225,000. to borrow 1.9 cost me 144,668 as a repayment to the bank, which left me a net of 80,000 per annum for the next 15 years on a $2,000 investment.
And growing. Is that worth a clap? Pegasus, Aquarius, you have a very puzzled look on your face. Altogether. So
It's not that puzzling. It's a formula that Roy gives you.
Yeah, I was just wondering how you can spot something like that if you're driving down the street.
I gave you that little formula.
well, the main thing is you've got to be
You
not
just-
a tortoise or a squirrel because they're not looking. Their hares see this because they're always visionary. They see things. That's why you've got to hold the hand of one of them. Exactly. Now, trust me, look, trust me, I'm a hare. Yeah. So, this is his first transaction, and he rings me up and says, Roy, I've got this transaction here. It's now valued at 3.2 million. I haven't done it yet. Here's all the numbers. They're all ready to sign. In fact, they've already
I
did
had
the
signed contracts.
Yeah. And what should I sell it? I mean, there's a person with a super fund wants to buy it at 3.2 at a 7% yield. So I'd get $1 million, million plus. I said, take it. You never ever go wrong taking a profit. You never lose taking a profit. Anyway, Merlin, in his wisdom, was looking for income and assets and building that, and was happy about the 80,000 net position coming through, and knowing that that would constantly rise. And there was another transaction, and he only tied up $2,000, so it was his decision. So you kept it.
Kept it, yep.
And you still have it.
Yep.
But can you see, he could cash in his chips anytime he wants. In fact, that's already come up for its review, the rental.
The rental increase has already gone through,
Yeah.
so it's all done.
Should probably up this up because that 80 would be higher than that.
Yeah.
Because
It's gone up 3.5%.
they, on the total rent, not just that net.
total rent.
So they pay all the outgoings, all the rates and taxes, every amount that is expended. So that is a net position. Okay, but wait, there's more. The purchase price, there it is, and the cashing was $1,000, and look at that.
You said start small.
Yeah. But that's total rent. Okay, so there we go. And what else happened then? We've got to wait. Celebration.
I think that was one of the things I really did listen to. Roy said, always celebrate your victories. So I said, right, let's do it.
So he took himself off for a 3-month holiday skiing in Japan. Was that a good idea? Because it's not a destination, it is a journey here. Now, a couple of tips on this. We're going to talk about this tomorrow because we really want to get through this. We've got Matt and Liz waiting outside to do our presentation, and we've got to have an afternoon tea somehow or other.
You've had it.
Have we? Oh, okay. Well, we've got to have something. What we need to do, we need to understand 2 quick things, and that is that you don't have to get a loan at 60%. You can get a commercial loan at 65.
Which
you
is
can get
what
one
I
at
did, yeah.
7%, 70%. You can get one at 75. You can get one at 80. In fact, I've had them at 100%. Let's just hold your questions for a second. So money's not required, and a money partner would do that. Do you think if we showed you that transaction and he needed some money to even do it, who'd be into the transaction? I'm just curious. Absolutely. This is a transaction in Brisbane. This is your next transaction. This is this was a garage.
It was a service station in Brisbane. It was one of those like the country outback service stations that was in a great position, but time had passed it by, and it had like the tin shed. I'm sure everybody's seen some on your drives through the country servo that's got a demountable service station, had a few pumps. The guy wanted $950,000 for the site and for the business. So again, it looked, when I did my sums on it using that formula to get my yield, where I think I could be, I went through that and worked out those steps that I went through on the due diligence process, again, putting that into the contract. It had a $1.3 million construction because I wanted to put it into a 7-Eleven, so I had to put the tilt up. I had to build the framework and then they fit it out on the inside and everything else. So basically you just give them the site with the building. So when you go through that with your building costs, your legal stamps, your leasing agent, the total cost came in at 2,335,000 or 55, whatever it is there. Again, you can look at that figure and you get, frightened by it. But when you start to drop the numbers out by that formula, I went to 7-Eleven and I said to them, giving you this site, this much traffic, this area, and your pumps, what would you pay me for that? And they come back and they offer me 265,000 net rent per year for that. And then I put another little $40,000 building, a tilt up on it, and I leased that to Noodlebox for 55,000, giving me a total of 315,000 rent per year on that property. Again, I haven't bought it. It was still on the 90-day due diligence, so I'd gone through to do all of that, and it had a 4.5% increase built in. And the other little kicker that comes in with the 7-Eleven or the fuel is they pay you that check once a year up front. So they give you 265,000 at the start of each year for your lease money. So there's another little sweetener in there. And if you do that same formula that I said, the total price, my total rent of 315,000, divide that by my total cost, multiply that by 100, it gives me a 13.5% yield on that deal. So again, you can drop those numbers through, going to the bank, their lending criteria, what they want to give you. Again, I've only signed a contract, I've given them no money, no cheque, nothing. And the bank, again, 60% of the end lease is what they will do it on a 7% yield. So that formula, you just turn it around and you do it the other way, where you 315,000 rent, divide by your 7%, which is the bank want 7% yield on it, multiply by 100. It values the business at $4.5 million. And my cost was, we'll just continue with that. It doubled the value of the site by $2,165,000. So what that did, I only had to put in, my total cost was 2.3, and my loan was 2.7. So effectively meant that I had $300,000 back in my pocket without putting $1 into the venture. I got $315,000 out of my loan, and I get a rent of 315. So in my first year, I got 400, nearly $500,000 back off the deal in my pocket without putting a cent into it, which is what you get taught at Abundance. You don't use your own money.
So 112,000 worth of income from this net, with the escalation 4.5 on the total rent, and 4.5 on rent of 315,000. That's quite a large sum of money on increases going on, but he's already getting 80,000 on his other little deals, so he's now over $200,000 in income that's coming in net to him. Plus he's picked up $1 million on the first transaction, and now he's picked up another couple of million, right? So he's now at 3 million. Who's liking the game so far? I'm just curious if this is a good game. This is the biggest skeptic we have. I mean, it took us a while.
Nothing works.
Nothing works. Anyway, this is his second transaction. Unhappy as he is with this, he says Roy's still wrong, so he's going to do a transaction to prove Roy wrong. Am I right?
Yeah.
He tries
I
to
said,
say,
I need to make Roy, I need to have one on Roy, so I want him to be wrong on something, so I'm going to do something that I don't understand. And that's the other important thing with your investments, is to understand what you're doing, and if you don't, come back to the master. And it makes it a lot simpler process.
So he's driving by this site because he'd heard about one we just did on a subdivision where people drive by sites all the time, Aquarian, and they don't see it. They just keep driving by. There's a massive site at up the road. There was a
development of hundreds of
The one you
blocks.
see them all the time.
Yeah,
And the land's for sale for 280 or something.
280,000. I
Yeah.
think it's on the next slide
Yeah.
if we...
And wait, there's more. What did we do this time? We went and did something.
Oh no,
That was just a rounding up of that.
that's
okay.
just finishing that off.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
there was no money involved in that one. I got 300,000 or 400,000 back.
Yeah, so you don't need any money. In fact, you get... It's like when you go to the supermarket and you buy things and you give them your card and they say, would you like some money out, cash out? And you go, yeah. And then you buy things and they give you money. Do you like that idea? But this is when it's coming out of your bank account. This is when you buy something and they give you 300,000 for buying it. Is that a good cash out? And there's no credit card required at all, or even a debit card, actually. It's just there. So, little celebration there. Where's he go? Oh, he buys a boat. a 50-foot. And was this when you bought the house too, about the same time?
About the same time, yeah.
Because he buys his house, in fact he invites us over for dinner because he's having a good time. He buys his house, it's a beautiful house. It's like a $4.5 million house on the water because he had to park the boat. It's got its own marina. And it's one of those architect-designed ones with the stories and everything. Roger and I and Katrina, we come to dinner, and we had a lovely dinner that night. It was a lovely. It's a beautiful, magnificent house. It's got its own theatre, and the theatre room was all black. It had little starlights all in the roof, so you could go and watch. You swear you're out on the outside. They had their own, all the bedrooms and study. They had their own study. They got closets and this beautiful, an outside area where you can entertain and little marina. You go down there. And a car park, and he's got a Maserati in the car park, and he drives it, said, this is my Maserati. I said, this is really working. And I said to Merlin, I said, so what's happening, Merlin? How come this is working? He said, I'll show you. Come with me. So we all follow him in this beautiful house. It's lovely. Get into his study, and there's his computer. Turns it on. And he plays a meditation that he's downloaded from our program at the Abundance. It's one of the Abundance meditations, where you're standing on the beach and you imagine your future. And Merlin plays this every morning at 5:30 a.m. It's about a 30-minute, 40-minute meditation. He's been doing that, he said, since he did our program. And he works from 5:30 in the morning till 8 o'clock in the morning on his stuff. And then his day's over. And he leaves whatever's going to happen to whatever could happen. He's actually finished work. Who would like a day like that? I'm just curious. Now, what's amazing about Merlin is a disciplined plan, because it's not his normal thing to do such a thing. It's on his gold card. You're going to get gold cards tomorrow. These are priceless. And why I want you to see Merlin is that this stuff works if you work it. It doesn't work if you don't. It's very simple. We're going to give you a 9-step plan to work these things, and one of them will be your gold card. It's very simple, nothing complicated. Just do it. So that's the boat, and I think this is the deal. This is the land. So you pick up a pile of blocks of land here, 8. Ask price $280,000. You purchase 8 blocks at $200,000 each. He makes an offer. I'll buy them at $200 because they're not selling. And a $1,000 option on each block. 8 blocks, $8,000. I've now got 8 blocks at 200. What's 8 times 200? 1.6 million. So for $8,000, you now control $1.6 million worth of real estate. And then he hires a real estate agent to sell them at 280 as packages with incentive of $40,000 per sale. Within 30 days, he sold 8 blocks with a 30-day settlement. Cash only outlay is $8,000. Agent's commission $320,000. Was the agent happy? And Merlin's profit $320,000 because it was the other $40,000. The whole transaction was completed in 60 days. Now, what do you think most people do when they talk to an agent about the commission? They want to get it down. What we teach in abundance, because we're abundant, is to bring it up. Could you imagine how hard and how excited he was to sell something to make $40,000 every time?
They normally get about 2,800 per block, and they got 40,000.
Could he afford to give $40,000 per blocker and $320,000 away? tax deduction. It's not even his money. Could he afford to take the 320,000? So this is his third transaction. How are we doing? Okay, so what are we up to here? Celebration, why not? So there's the Maserati. That's a lovely car.
Which I kept for about 3 months. And I made an offer to a real estate agent, and he got it through, and I threw him the keys.
Yeah,
The Maserati was gone. That didn't stay very long, that Maserati.
This is the typical day for Kelvin. This is his 5 a.m. wake up, listen to Roy's meditation, 6:30 breakfast, 7 o'clock planning in action, 8 o'clock finish for the day. He likes this idea. I'm just curious if this is good. Okay, so what's next? Learning so far. Set up your advisory team and have absolute clarity with your goals and communication. Communicate this to your team. The amount of time you invest in strategies will have a major impact on the size of your profits.
Which is, what you get taught. All your profit is in your purchasing. Your
No
sales,
homework, due diligence, structure.
due diligence, get your structure right, get your exit price because it's all worked out for you. So the more you put into your preparation, the less mistakes that you'll have.
If you're unsure about anything, ask your mentor. Help you for help sooner rather than later. This can be very costly if you don't. So, and live from abundance, okay?
And the reason why I came back, because I'd done it 2 years ago, I had started to lose have you spoken about flow and everything?
A little bit of that,
A little
yeah.
bit. What it does when you get into your flow and you're comfortable in what you're doing, everything flows quite easily. It's not a difficult thing to do when you're in that position in your life. And I had 2 years of, having great success, enjoying what I was doing, but unfortunately my ego got in the road, and I thought I can do this smarter, faster, cheaper, I'll get more profit. And so my dynamics of my thinking shifted. And so I came back to not only when you do the abundance course, they have monthly follow-ups here at Varsity Lakes, and you can come and sit in the room and you can go through what is troubling you, where you are in your investment cycle. And so I came in and Roy said, "What are you doing in here?" I said, "Well, I was a surfer on the wave, everything was going beautifully, and I stopped paddling and I fell off the back of the wave because of these issues." And then Roy started to analyse through it, and that's when we worked out where the problems were. And because I didn't follow the steps those steps that Roy will teach you, I made a stupid investment. And I put $200,000 into the transaction, and I'm now in litigation with it because I didn't follow the strategy. So, whatever you do, follow it, listen, it does work. I'm a product of the product, that everything that Roy teaches you and the support that you get from that really can take you a long way, and you can start enjoying, the life of abundance that everybody desires.
So just on this matter, what he did, he paid a deposit on something. The real estate promised him he had a valuation on this property. On the basis of a handshake and a nod, they were going to transfer the valuation across. Came to, after the transaction was put through, they wouldn't give him the valuation because the valuation didn't really exist and didn't stack up. Now he's saying that doesn't work because I can't get my funding and da-da-da-da, so they're having a bit of an argy-bargy going on. He'll probably win the case, but it's annoying. And what he did was break his own rules that we set
your
here.
rules.
And the rules were, you don't go into the transaction without your due diligence, and you don't go in and make it unconditional, because you have lots of conditions, until that happens. It was just an error of judgment. No one's allowed to make an error of judgment. That makes him, and he comes back here and gets another shot of heroin, and get
Of
the
Royism.
and get it done. So what I love about Merlin is he's a real man. He's able to, you know, show, well, okay, I'm not like walking on water here. I do things. But can I tell you, in 2 years to do a couple of $1 million and to produce a 200,000 income, which is escalating at between 3.5% and 4% on its annualised amount, not just the amount, plus have then built in there about, what is it, $3 million worth of asset equity, plus pull out a 360,000 on that little, 320,000 on that little transaction on land. And then you're really working hard. I mean, basically you don't work. Let's get clear.
No, I do till 8 o'clock. No.
I rang him up the other day. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm having lunch. This is his big day. I said, why don't you come down here and get a look at this video and stuff, because I want you to come and see these people. And he's just lovely. He says, I'll come and have a little talk. He doesn't get paid to come and have a talk. He just come and have a little talk. Who's learning something here? Yeah. So if we give him a couple of tips, what would you say?
You don't want to. I need some advice.
Okay, go
That's
ahead.
why I'm here.
Go ahead. Clock's running.
Yeah. I bought this product last week. I went to Melbourne for a week's holiday.
Okay.
And I came across, looking at the newspaper, because I didn't have anything to do till 8 o'clock because I didn't have my computer with me. So I was reading the newspaper, having a coffee at a shop, and there was a restaurant for sale. And so I said, I would like to buy that. So I went to have a chat with the people, and the price they wanted was $650,000.
Okay. Yep.
What they wanted to do, as I discussed it with them, was to buy the business and then ask them why they were selling, because it had 5 years of very good track record. It was making $5,000 per week in income, in net income. So I asked them why they want to get out of it, and they told me that they were going into a bigger, it was a cafe, just cappuccinos and cakes, very simple business, and they were going into a 300-seat restaurant. So it was quite a big business. There was a lot of cash that was required to do it. And I said, why do you want to go from an established to a risk? And he said, well, we need $120,000 to finish off this other restaurant. So I said to them, what about if I buy a part of your business for your $120,000? We worked out a price from the $650 down to $480 was the purchase price that we agreed on, and I put $120,000 into that, and it effectively gave me a 25% equity in their business. That gave me $1,285 per week was my share for my investment. Not working it, not doing a thing to it, because I want to live up here in the sunshine. But I said, all right, that's great, I can do that. So I went to a money lender or a money partner, because I hate using my own money, which Roy really doesn't like you doing. So I borrowed the $120,000 at 11%. That comes into $12,500 to service that debt per annum, and I get roughly $70,000 in gross income, and when you take the servicing of it, I get $50,000 per annum, which is $1,000 a week for this exercise, and I put no money into the deal. And I'm wondering how I would structure to...
Do you think he's got a problem, really?
I need some help.
Oh, I can imagine. All together go, oh. We're very sad, don't you think? I mean, I think we all should take 5 minutes silence just for the bleeding heart here. What could we do, really? I don't know.
So I'm wondering how I can, not for the tax agent up the back there, but how I can effectively
structure
that in a better way than having $1,000 income per week.
Mm-hmm. And we have a way.
Do we?
Legally, yes.
That's what I'd like to know.
Well, we won't... Who would like to know, by the way? Yeah. We will probably have to do this in a few minutes, because they're all going berserk here, because we are so late, we're in such trouble, Merlin.
These two get together.
Yeah, we could go on. Who's enjoying this, by the way? We could have the rest of the time here for the next 3 days just talking to Merlin. However, we do have other things. And I will talk to you about that and we'll get that handled. Can I just, this is really outrageous, but can we talk about the car? The Ferrari?
Yeah?
He does a Ferrari deal. Okay. Just amazing. Has a Ferrari in Melbourne.
Well, you need a car to drive around in.
And the guy is still shaking his head how he did this deal. And when he goes to Melbourne, he drives the Ferrari. And it's a wonderful transaction. In fact, I have to take my head up to Merlin. That is the best transaction of all of them.